old ladies got what they deserved. Petty revenge story. My name is Liam, and I'm a musician. More accurately, I'm a struggling musician. I pay the bills slinging lattes at the daily grind, but my heart belongs to my band, Static Static. We're loud, a little rough around the edges, but we're passionate. The problem is, passion doesn't always translate well through thin apartment walls. I live in this old brick building, the kind that's slowly getting swallowed by fancy condos and artisanal coffee shops. The rent is relatively cheap, but the price you pay is living with, well, characters. And by characters, I mean Alina and Beatrice, two elderly sisters who everyone just calls the Crows. They're notorious. Nosy, entitled, and convinced their age grants them the right to dictate everyone else's lives. The first time I heard from them, I'd been practicing with Marco, our drummer. We were running through a new song, nothing too crazy, mostly acoustic with light percussion. A furious rapping on my door startled us both. I opened it to find Alina, her face pinched into a permanent frown, clutching her chest dramatically. "Young man," she screeched, her voice surprisingly powerful for such a small woman. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to our ears? To our health?" Beatrice, slightly taller and equally sour-faced, stood behind her, nodding in agreement. "The noise, it's unbearable," I stammered an apology. "I'm really sorry. We weren't trying to be loud. We can keep it down." "Keeping it down isn't enough," Alina snapped. "We need quiet. We deserve peace and quiet in our old age." Marco, never one to back down from a confrontation, opened his mouth to say something, but I elbowed him sharply. I figured I could smooth things over. I was wrong. From that day on, my life became a carefully orchestrated dance of noise avoidance. I bought soundproofing foam for the walls, which helped a little, but not enough to appease the Crows. I adjusted our practice times to be during daylight hours, never past 7 p.m. I even started using electronic drums and practicing guitar with headphones. It wasn't enough. The complaints escalated. Notes appeared taped to my door, filled with passive-aggressive pronouncements about my disregard for the elderly and my lack of consideration. They started banging on the walls at the slightest sound, even if I was just walking around. Mrs. Rodriguez, the building's superintendent, a kind, overworked woman, pulled me aside one day. "Liam, honey, I'm sorry to bother you, but those ladies, they're on my back constantly. They're threatening to complain to the landlord if I don't do something about the noise. But I'm trying, Mrs. Rodriguez, I really am," I pleaded. "I've done everything I can think of." She sighed, rubbing her temples. I know, but they are persistent. They've been here for years, and they know how to make trouble. Just try to keep it down, okay? For my sake." I felt trapped. My passion, my music, was being suffocated by these two miserable women. Marco was furious. "This is ridiculous. Man, you're bending over backward for them, and they're still not happy." "You gotta fight back," Sarah, the barista at the Daily Grind and a fellow musician, agreed. "They're bullying you, Liam. You can't let them get away with it." Maybe a strongly worded letter. Or glitter bombs. The glitter bomb idea was tempting, but I knew it wouldn't solve anything. I tried reasoning with the Crows. I knocked on their door, offering to show them the soundproofing to explain our practice schedule. Alina opened the door a crack, peering at me with suspicion. "We don't want to see anything. We just want you to stop making noise." "But I'm not making excessive noise, we're being reasonable." Beatrice chimed in. "Reasonable? We can hear every thump, every screech. It's disrupting our lives, it's disrupting my life too," I snapped, regretting it instantly. "This is my passion. This is what I do." Alina's eyes narrowed. "Your passion is ruining our health. We're going to start documenting every single noise, every single disturbance. And we're going to take it to the landlord. You'll be out of here before you know it." That was it. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to take it anymore. I started documenting their behavior, too. I recorded their outbursts, kept a log of their complaints, and even started talking to other tenants in the building. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who had issues with the Crows. They'd been terrorizing everyone for years, complaining about everything from late-night TV to the smell of cooking. I spent hours talking with Marco and Sarah, brainstorming ideas. Some were ridiculous, some were potentially illegal, but some had potential. I wanted to make them understand what it felt like to have your life disrupted, to be constantly harassed. I wanted to expose their hypocrisy, to show everyone what they were really like. My plan was simple, yet devious. It involved exploiting their own sensitivities and vulnerabilities, and a whole lot of patience. Phase 1, the accidental annoyances. I knew Alina and Beatrice hated opera. Loathed it. I found a short, repetitive clip of a particularly shrill soprano area and looped it. Then, using a tiny, portable speaker, I placed it strategically in my apartment, close to the wall they shared. I turned the volume down to almost inaudible levels. Just barely perceptible, a faint, maddening hum. Enough to drive them crazy, but not enough to pinpoint the source. Next, I knew they were allergic to lilies. I accidentally scheduled a delivery of a huge bouquet of the most fragrant lilies I could find, addressed to room 2B. It wasn't directly to them. I could always claim it was a mistake if need be. I watched from my window as they retrieved the package, their faces lighting up with anticipation, only to be replaced with immediate sneezing and watery eyes. These were small victories, but they were just the beginning. Phase 2, the public exposure. This was the risky part, the part that could backfire spectacularly. But I was tired of being the victim. It was time to fight back. I'd noticed a pattern in the Crows' schedule. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, without fail, they went to the local community center for bingo. It was their sacred ritual, and I knew they took it very seriously. Using my music skills, I subtly adjusted the timing of my practices. I knew the exact hours, even minutes, where they were out of the building, and timed that to start playing a bit louder and build up to what they would consider excessive. The next Tuesday, I waited. At precisely 1:45 p.m., I plugged in my electric guitar. I started with some scales, gradually increasing the volume. Nothing crazy, just loud enough to be noticeable. At 2:00 p.m., bingo started. At 2:15 p.m., I launched into a full-blown, distorted rendition of a song from my band, all the while keeping the door to the apartment slightly ajar. Then I quietly slipped out of my apartment, grabbed a coffee from the Daily Grind, and headed to the community center. I didn't go inside, I just stood across the street, watching. It didn't take long. At 2:45 p.m., Alina and Beatrice stormed out of the community center, their faces red with rage. I overheard snippets of their furious complaints, unbearable noise, ruin our bingo, that awful music, as they ranted and raved. Several other people emerged from the community center. At first, they seemed annoyed, but then a few of them started exchanging knowing glances. I recognized a few faces, other tenants from our building who had previously complained to me about the Crows' constant griping. One woman, Mrs. Gable, a sweet elderly lady who lived on the first floor, spoke up. Honestly, Alina, Beatrice, you're always complaining about something. Remember last week when you yelled at Mr. Henderson for watering his plants too early in the morning? Another man, a young father named Tom, added yes, and you told my wife her baby was crying too loud at 3 p.m. on a weekday. Seriously, Alina and Beatrice were taken aback. Their faces flushed deeper shades of red. They sputtered and stammered, trying to defend themselves, but their usual arguments fell flat. The other people weren't buying it anymore. I watched, a small smile creeping across my face. It was working. Suddenly, Alina spotted me across the street. She shrieked, pointing a shaky finger. You're behind this, you planned this, I shrugged innocently. Planned what? I'm just enjoying a cup of coffee. Beatrice stomped her foot. Don't play innocent with us, we know you did this on purpose. Did what? Practice my music, I asked, my voice dripping with mock innocence. Is there a law against practicing music in my own apartment? I thought freedom of expression was a thing. The other people started muttering amongst themselves, siding with me. Leave him alone, Alina, Mrs. Gable said firmly. He's just trying to live his life. Embarrassed and defeated, Alina and Beatrice retreated, muttering under their breath as they marched back towards the apartment building. The next day, Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on my door, looking both relieved and slightly amused. Liam, what did you do? She asked, trying to suppress a smile. I played dumb. What do you mean, Mrs. Rodriguez? Those ladies, they came to me yesterday, practically begging me to reinstate their peace and quiet. But for the first time, I didn't budge. I told them I couldn't control what people did in their own apartments as long as they weren't breaking any rules. And I prompted. And she continued, they actually apologized. To me. They said they were sorry for causing so much trouble and that they would try to be more considerate of the other tenants. I couldn't believe it. My petty revenge had actually worked. Things changed after that. The Crows still lived in the building, but they were noticeably quieter, less intrusive. They even stopped leaving notes on my door. One afternoon, I was practicing with Marco in the courtyard when Mrs. Gable came out of her apartment. Liam, she said, that music sounds lovely. Would you ever consider playing a little concert for us? Just for the building. My heart soared. We organized a small, impromptu concert in the courtyard a few weeks later. Almost everyone came, bringing snacks and drinks. Even Tom and his wife came with their baby, who, surprisingly, seemed to enjoy the music. Alina and Beatrice were conspicuously absent. As we played our last song, I looked around at the smiling faces, at the sense of community that had been forged in the face of the Crow's tyranny. I realized that I hadn't just gotten revenge, I'd actually made things better. And sometimes, that's the best kind of petty revenge you can get.